When you hear the word evolution, Charles Darwin is almost an immediate association without anyone else worth mentioning. In fact, not only was the concept of species evolving to be better adapted for their environment not a new concept, but several people of science, ideas, books, data interpretation, and specimen organization influenced Darwin. This influence and assistance over many years from all over the world were important pieces to the eventual, obvious outcome from interpreting the compiled data that the origin of species existence and continual success is directly related to the product of competition and natural selection. As a young man, Darwin's father thought that a career of medicine was fit for him, and he sent Charles to the University of Edinburgh in October 1825 at the age of 16. The University of Edinburgh was a free-thinking university full of anti-religious and social and political radicalism. Many students in Edinburgh were embracing the evolutionary ideas. It was there that he met the most influential friend up to that point, Robert Edmund Grant. Grant was an atheistic evolutionist who was high-ranking in invertebrate zoology. Darwin did a lot of field work alongside Grant, collecting specimens, discussing ideas, and incorporating some of Grant's materialistic philosophy of science. Grant believed in a spontaneous origin of life, and given enough time, believed it possible for specimens to have originated from a single cell. Darwin learned a plethora of information in animal behaviors from Grant, which allowed him to interpret the empirical evidence he accumulated while observing over the next 25 years for the publication of his life's work. John Gould was born in England in 1804 and became famous for his work in ornithology, the study of birds. He published numerous books including A Century of Birds from the Himalaya Mountains, Birds of Europe, and Birds of Australia. Darwin gave the bird specimens found in his journey to Gould for study. Gould discovered the 12 species of finches from the Galapagos Island had different types of beaks, depending on their food source. This group of birds became what is referred to as Darwin's finches. Darwin would later remark through Gould's research, "It is very remarkable that a nearly perfect gradation of structure in this one group can be traced in the form of the beak, from one exceeding in dimensions that of the largest grosbeak to another differing but little from that of the warbler." When Darwin's Zoology of the Voyage of HMS Beagle was published, a majority of the work involving birds, both written and illustrated, had contributions from Gould. Hugh Falconer was born in Scotland in 1808 and became famous for his work in geology, botany, and fossils. While Falconer headed the Saharanpur Botanical Garden in India from 1832 to 1842, he became famous for his study in fossils in the Shaiwalik Hills. The fossils included mastodons, elephants, rhinoceros, pig, giraffe, and ape. In 1842, Falconer returned to England because of illness, but he brought back 70 large chests of dried plants and 5 tons of fossilized bones. Falconer's primary contribution to Darwin was providing fossil evidence to support Charles's theory of transmutation. Using his prominent position in the Royal Society, Falconer supported Darwin's works, which led to Darwin's winning of the Copley Medal in 1864 in recognition for his important researches in biological sciences. One of the greatest quandaries for 19th century biologists was the existence of disjoint species, seemingly unrelated plants and animals separated by barriers so great that dispersal or migration from one area to another seemed impossible. Theists easily explained this anomaly by suggesting that each isolated region was its own center of creation. Deists and natural theologians, however, were unwilling to accept that an all-powerful God would be so whimsical. How then did life reach all corners of the globe if there was only one center of creation? This was a question that Edward Forbes realized must be answered if theistic thought was to be overturned. A renowned marine biologist and geologist, Forbes theorized that sunken land bridges had existed in the past, allowing for species to move from continents to even the smallest isolated islands. While Charles Darwin came to reject the idea of land bridges, he was no doubt inspired by Forbes's attempts to provide a mechanism which could dismiss the need for multiple centers of creation. Darwin wondered if plant seeds could reach far-off islands by floating across the ocean. To test this theory, Darwin immersed plant seeds in seawater for long periods of time. He found that some plant seeds could still germinate even after being immersed in seawater for months. When indigenous islanders and British naval expeditions confirmed the existence of floating seed pods and animal land rafts, Darwin was convinced he had found the mechanism needed to explain disjoint species. In his treatise Essay on the Principle of Population, economist Thomas Malthus postulated that human population growth was limited primarily by food production. Mathematical extrapolation indicated that humanity would exist in a never-ending struggle for survival. Upon reading Malthus's work, Darwin considered the possibility that limited resources, in general, forced competition within a species. Those individuals most fitted for survival would prosper, while weaker individuals would die off. Malthusian economics, when applied to the wild, came to form the basis for Darwin's theory of natural selection. While Darwin was not the only proponent of natural selection, most of his contemporaries believed it was the environment that drove natural selection. Inspired by Malthusian economics, Darwin was unique in his belief that competition was in fact the driving force behind natural selection. The intricate web of interlinking evidence in multiple disciplines from scientific communities all over the world led Darwin to create a theory out of a hypothesis. Darwin wasn't so much of a great thinker or scientist as he was perhaps the greatest data interpreter in history.